My wife said, "I don't want drama." I replied, "Understood." Then I packed a bag, left our key on the counter, accepted the Dallas offer, and watched her graduation fairy tale collapse into a lesson about respect I never had to explain. I'm Mark, 35M. My wife, Emily, is 33F. Married 6 years. Together 9. I don't want drama. That's what my wife said, standing in the kitchen with her arms crossed, already half turned away from me like the conversation was a chore she'd agreed to endure, not participate in. I had just told her I'd been offered a position in Dallas. Big jump. Real responsibility. More money. Actual growth. The kind of opportunity people say they want their partner to have, right up until it interferes with their plans. Emily didn't even ask for details. No salary question. No start date. Just a sigh, a tight smile, and that line. "I don't want drama," she repeated, like I'd threatened to flip a table instead of calmly explaining a job offer. Her graduation ceremony was in 3 months. Master's degree. She'd been calling it her moment for over a year. She had a color-coded plan. Photos, party, speeches, posts. I was supposed to be there, smiling in the background, clapping on cue, holding her bag while she collected validation. Dallas didn't fit the script. "So what?" she said, rolling her eyes. "You're just going to create chaos now? Can this not wait until after I graduate?" That was the moment something in me settled. Not snapped. Settled. I nodded once. Calm. Neutral. Understood. She blinked. I don't think she expected that. Usually I'd push back. Explain myself. Try to make it palatable. Instead, I walked past her, went into the bedroom, and pulled out a duffel bag. I packed light. Clothes. Laptop. Charger. Documents I knew I'd regret leaving behind if I didn't take them now. Emily followed me, voice rising. "What are you doing? Are you serious right now?" I didn't answer. I zipped the bag, walked back into the kitchen, and placed my key on the counter. Then I opened my phone and accepted the Dallas offer. Behind me, her fairy tale started cracking, and I hadn't raised my voice once. Emily laughed when she realized I was actually packing. Not nervous laughter. Dismissive laughter. The kind that says you don't really think I believe this, paired with a smirk she usually reserved for waiters she thought were incompetent. "Wow," she said, leaning against the doorframe. "So this is your move? Storming off because you didn't get your way?" I kept folding shirts. Slow. Deliberate. "I didn't storm," I replied. "You said you don't want drama. I'm removing myself from it." That wiped the smile off her face. "That's not what I meant, and you know it," she snapped. "You're being manipulative." There it was. Any boundary I ever set somehow became manipulation in her vocabulary. She followed me into the living room, arms flailing now. "You're really going to abandon me right before my graduation? Do you have any idea how that makes me look?" I stopped and looked at her. Really looked. And that was the first time I noticed she hadn't said a single word about us. Just optics. Timing. Her moment. "I was proud of you," I said calmly. "But I'm not a prop." Her jaw tightened. "So you're choosing a job over your wife?" "No," I said. "I'm choosing myself over being minimized." She scoffed. "God, you're being so dramatic." I almost smiled at the irony. I slung the duffel over my shoulder and walked back to the kitchen. The key sat there, metal against granite, louder than any argument we'd ever had. "You're making a huge mistake," she said, voice sharp now. "You think Dallas is going to fix whatever's wrong with you?" I paused at the door. "I don't think anything's wrong with me," I said. "That's the difference." She went quiet after that. The dangerous kind of quiet. The kind she used when she was already planning how to reframe the story. As I stepped outside, my phone buzzed. HR confirming the start date. Relocation details. Welcome messages. Behind me, through the closed door, I could hear her pacing. For the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty walking away. I felt late, like I'd stayed too long. And I had a plane to catch. Dallas didn't feel real at first. It was just emails, onboarding links, a calendar invite titled Executive Welcome Lunch. Emily, meanwhile, made it very real very fast. By the time I landed, she'd already started rewriting the narrative. My sister called me that night. "Hey, Emily's been texting Mom. She says you had some kind of breakdown and just ran." I closed my eyes. Of course she did. Within 48 hours, Emily had gone from "I don't want drama" to starring in her own carefully curated tragedy. Vague posts, black and white selfies, quotes about outgrowing people who can't handle your success. She never named me, but she didn't have to. Everyone knew. She texted too. Long paragraphs alternating between icy sarcasm and wounded disbelief. I can't believe you did this to me. Do you know how humiliating this is? People keep asking where my husband is. There it was again. Not why did you leave? Just how does this affect me? I replied once. I didn't do anything to you. I chose something for myself. That sent her over the edge. She called me selfish. Accused me of sabotaging her moment. Said I was jealous of her success, threatened by her degree, insecure about my own life. None of it landed. Because here's the thing she never understood. I'd already lived through the collapse. Quietly. In real time. By the time I left the key on the counter, I'd already grieved the marriage. A week later, she sent a message that made my hands go cold. I hope you're happy ruining everything. My graduation is going to be a joke now. I stared at that sentence for a long time. Not our marriage. Not our future. Her graduation. That's when I knew this wasn't about abandonment in her mind. It was about an audience walking out before the applause. And Emily did not take that well. Emily doubled down. 2 weeks after I left, she emailed me. Not about us. Not about counseling. Not about anything remotely resembling accountability, but about seating. Are you planning on coming back for the graduation ceremony or not? I need to finalize the program, and it would look really strange if my husband wasn't there. That was it. No, how are you? No acknowledgement of what happened. Just logistics and optics, like I was a missing accessory she needed to track down. I stared at the email in my Dallas apartment, surrounded by unopened boxes and the quiet hum of a life that didn't revolve around managing someone else's emotions. I replied with one sentence. I won't be attending. She responded within minutes. Unbelievable. You are doing this on purpose. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is for me? I almost admired the consistency. Emily had always treated my presence as a given. I was expected to show up, smile, support, absorb. My job was to stabilize the environment so her narrative stayed clean. The second I stopped performing that role, she called it betrayal. A few days later, my mom forwarded me a message Emily had sent her. I just don't recognize Mark anymore. He's changed. He's become cold. I supported him for years, and the moment it's my turn, he disappears. Supported. Interesting choice of word for someone who'd called my career safe but unimpressive more times than I could count. I didn't correct anyone. I didn't send screenshots. I didn't defend myself. Because I knew something Emily didn't yet understand. The people who mattered would notice the pattern eventually, and the ones who didn't were never really on my side to begin with. Then came the announcement. Emily posted her graduation photos early, mock cap and gown shots, carefully cropped to avoid the question everyone was already asking. Where's your husband? The comments were full of congratulations and confusion, and for the first time, Emily couldn't control the narrative just by smiling harder. That's when the fairy tale started to wobble, and she started to panic. Emily's panic didn't show up as sadness. It showed up as control attempts. First, she tried charm. She called one night like nothing had happened. Light voice, almost playful. Hey, she said, I've been thinking. Maybe we just needed a little reset. Long distance could be good for us. Us. Back to that word, suddenly useful again. I didn't interrupt her while she talked about visits, timelines, how I could still make it back for graduation weekend if I really tried. She spoke fast, like if she didn't slow down, reality wouldn't catch her. When she finished, I said, I didn't leave to renegotiate. Silence. Then irritation. So you're just done? That's it. You don't even want to try? I tried for years, I replied. You just didn't notice because it didn't inconvenience you. That flipped the switch. She accused me of being resentful, of holding grudges, of secretly competing with her. She said my Dallas move was reactionary, and that no one respected a man who bailed when things got hard. I waited until she ran out of steam. This isn't about Dallas, I said. It's about respect, and I was tired of begging for it. Her voice went cold. You're really going to let everyone think you abandoned me right before the biggest moment of my life? I answered honestly. I'm not managing your image anymore. She hung up on me. 2 days later, I got an email from her department chair, polite, awkward, asking if everything was okay and whether I'd be attending the ceremony, as they were finalizing family seating. Emily had escalated it to her university. I replied simply that I wouldn't be attending and wished them well. That's when it clicked for me. Emily didn't want me back as a partner. She wanted me back as proof. Proof that her story still worked. Proof that she was supported. Proof that nothing had actually fallen apart. And the more I stayed gone, the more obvious it became that something had. The fairy tale needed a leading man. And I had exited the stage without asking permission. The week before graduation, Emily stopped pretending this was mutual. Her texts turned sharp, clipped, transactional. People are asking questions. My advisor noticed you're not coming. Do you realize how this makes me look? Not once did she ask how I was doing, or if I missed her, or if I wanted to talk about what actually broke between us. Just optics. Always optics. Then she tried guilt. She sent me a photo from our wedding, us laughing, champagne glasses midair, and wrote, "Was all of this really worth throwing away?" I stared at it longer than I should have. Not because I missed her, but because I remembered how much effort went into maintaining that image even back then. The arguments before the smiles. The corrections afterward. How often I'd been told I was too sensitive for reacting to her tone. I replied with something she'd never heard from me before. Yes, that single word detonated whatever restraint she had left. She accused me of sabotaging her. Said I'd timed my exit to punish her for succeeding. Claimed I'd always been insecure, and this was my way of reclaiming control. The irony was almost impressive. 2 days before graduation, she sent one last message. No anger this time. Just venom disguised as calm. "Don't worry. I'll explain your absence. I always clean up your messes anyway." That's when I blocked her. Graduation day came and went. I didn't watch the live stream. I didn't check social media. I went to work. Had lunch with my new team. Laughed more than I had in months. Later that night, my sister called. She looked off, she said carefully. She kept thanking people for supporting her through a difficult season. A lot of whispers. No one bought the story. I leaned back on my couch, staring at the Dallas skyline through my window. For years, Emily had believed respect was automatic. Something she deserved without question, while mine was conditional on behavior. She finally learned the lesson she never wanted to hear. You don't get to demand peace while disrespecting the person standing in front of you. And you don't get a fairy tale ending when you treat people like props. Blocking Emily didn't end the noise. It just changed where it came from. Friends I hadn't heard from in years suddenly checking in. Mutual acquaintances asking carefully phrased questions. Even one of her classmates DM'd me on LinkedIn of all places, saying Emily was having a really hard time, and maybe I should reconsider being so rigid. Rigid, another favorite word. Apparently, after graduation, Emily had leaned hard into the narrative. How she'd done it all alone. How she'd outgrown a marriage that couldn't keep up. She framed herself as resilient, independent, evolved. The problem was, people remembered me. They remembered who proofread her papers at midnight, who rearranged work travel to attend study sessions she insisted were too stressful to do alone, who paid most of the bills while she focused on school and called it our investment. So when she started posting captions about choosing herself and shedding dead weight, the math didn't add up. I heard through my sister that someone finally asked her point blank, "So why did your husband leave right before graduation?" Emily's answer apparently changed 3 times in one night. That's when the calls started again, from numbers I didn't recognize. I let them go to voicemail. Then one evening, I got an email from Emily's mother. Subject line, concerned. It was long, emotional, heavy on disappointment, light on facts. She wrote about commitment, sacrifice, how marriage wasn't something you walked away from when things became inconvenient. I replied once. Polite, brief. I didn't leave because it was inconvenient. I left because it was unsustainable. No reply after that. Meanwhile, Dallas kept moving. Projects. Responsibility. Colleagues who asked my opinion without rolling their eyes. A life that didn't require constant justification. One night, unpacking the last box, I found the program from Emily's graduation. Someone must have mailed it to me. Her name was printed proudly. No mention of a spouse. I folded it once, then again, and dropped it in the trash. Not out of spite, out of closure. Because whatever fairy tale Emily had imagined, where I stayed silent, stayed put, stayed useful, it had already ended. She just hadn't accepted it yet. Emily finally broke radio silence 3 weeks later. New number, new tone, same entitlement. "I don't understand how you can just move on like this," she said, skipping hello. "You're acting like I never mattered." I put the phone on speaker and sat on the edge of my bed. Calm, grounded. "You mattered," I said. "You just didn't listen when I told you what I needed." She laughed bitterly. "Oh, please. This is about control. You couldn't handle not being the center of my life for once. That one stung, not because it was true, but because it revealed how she'd always seen me. As competition, as background noise that should quiet itself when the spotlight shifted. I was never trying to be the center, I said. I just didn't want to be treated like an inconvenience. She went quiet for a moment, then pivoted hard. You know people are starting to talk, right? About how fast you left. About how cold you've been. It doesn't look good. There it was. The threat wrapped in concern. I'm not running for office, I replied. I don't need to look good. Her voice sharpened. So you don't care what anyone thinks of you. I care what I think of me, I said. That's new. She exhaled loudly, irritated. You always do this. You shut down and act superior. No, I said. I stop explaining myself when it's clear the explanation won't be respected. She tried one last angle. After everything I did for you, this is how you repay me? I closed my eyes, counted to 3. Emily, I said, support isn't something you keep score on. Silence. Then she hung up. Later that night, I realized something quietly profound. She wasn't angry because I left. She was angry because I left without needing her approval. For years, my role had been to orbit her life, adjusting, accommodating, absorbing. The moment I stepped out of that gravity, her entire system destabilized. Respect was the one thing she'd never offered freely. And it turned out, it was the only thing I'd ever really wanted. The divorce paperwork arrived faster than I expected. No fight. No drawn-out war. Emily signed without comment. Probably because even she understood that dragging this out would raise questions she couldn't control. Questions about timing. About respect. About why a husband with no history of instability walked away so cleanly. The day the papers were finalized, she posted again. A long caption about reinvention. About closing chapters. About women who rise when men can't keep up. Lots of applause emojis. Lots of people telling her how strong she was. But something was different this time. The comments were thinner, shorter, less enthusiastic. A few people asked quiet questions she didn't answer. A few congratulated her, but didn't use the words deserved or finally like before. The audience was getting tired. I heard through a mutual friend that her advisor had stopped returning emails. That a job she'd been basically promised after graduation suddenly required more experience. That people had started to notice how often her stories involved someone else being the problem. I didn't celebrate any of it. I just noticed. One evening, sitting on my balcony in Dallas, phone buzzing with a new project approval, it hit me. I hadn't thought about Emily all day. Not once. No spike of anxiety. No replaying conversations. No urge to explain myself to someone who'd already decided who I was. For years, I thought leaving would feel like loss. Instead, it felt like gravity shutting off. Emily got her degree. The photos. The captions. The curated strength. What she didn't get was the one thing she'd assumed was guaranteed. Me standing quietly behind her, absorbing the cost. She wanted peace without accountability. Support without respect. Applause without partnership. And for the first time in our entire marriage, I didn't explain why that wasn't enough. I just wasn't there anymore. It's been 8 months now. Dallas feels like home in a way I didn't know was possible. Not because the city is magical, but because my life finally fits the shape of who I am, not who I was managing myself to be. I don't rehearse conversations anymore. I don't brace for tone shifts. I don't feel like peace is something I have to earn by staying small. Emily and I haven't spoken since the divorce was finalized. I heard, secondhand, that she still tells people I couldn't handle her growth. That I left because I was intimidated. It's cleaner that way. Easier than admitting she confused support with entitlement. Here's the truth I never bothered explaining to her. I wasn't afraid of her success. I was exhausted by her disrespect. There's a difference. I wanted her to win. I just didn't want to lose myself quietly in the process. The Dallas offer didn't end my marriage. Her sentence did. I don't want drama. Because what she really meant was, don't challenge me. Don't disrupt my plans. Don't ask for space when I need control. So I listened. I packed a bag. I left the key on the counter. I chose a life where respect didn't have to be negotiated or explained. And her fairy tale, built on the assumption that I'd always be there no matter how I was treated, collapsed under the weight of one simple truth. People don't leave because they want chaos. They leave because they finally choose peace. If you're reading this and recognizing pieces of yourself, staying quiet, staying agreeable, staying because you don't want to be dramatic. Let me say this clearly. Walking away isn't drama. Sometimes it's just the first honest thing you've done in years.